Okay, I should be live streaming. That is awesome. So I haven't been live streaming for a while, but I'm back and I have a little bit of a special thing that I'm going to do today. In fact, I'm going to create something from scratch and I'm going to show you how I go about writing software and tools using my libraries. So all of these libraries are available as open source, and let's go check that out. It's at gamepipeline.org. I should have prepared that. So this is a website, and you can find download links for the application here, for the software, and then there's documentation of all of the code that I'm going to show you today. I don't quite know how much of this I'll actually be able to do, but we'll try to get something going. So I'm using Visual Studio on Windows, and most of my code is portable, so you can run it on any operating system. But just to start from scratch, I'm just going to use Visual Studio, and I'm just gonna start from zero, just to help us out. I'm gonna move that one over there, and this one over there. Cool. Okay, so let's have a look. I'm going to start a new project. So I'm going to say new project, and Visual Studio is slow apparently. There we go. So I'm going to say a Win32 console or a Win32 project. So I'm going to do that one. I'm going to choose my own directory. Hold on. So I tend to put things in source, select directory, and then we're going to name this something. So I'm going to call this tutorial. There we go. And then I'm going to press OK, and we're going to get a window, and it's going to ask me for a bunch of things, and I'm going to say no to everything. I don't want any security checks. I want a Windows application. I want an empty project. So don't give me anything. And then I'm going to say finish, and now we should have an empty project, like so. Okay, so now we're going to start by bringing in some existing files. So I'm going to add existing files. So I'm going to go to merge source, which is my directory for all my source code. And we're going to start by bringing in betray. So betray.h and betray win32, because we're on Windows, and betray main, and betray keys, because we need keys. And then we're going to bring in forge, which is just some basic stuff. We're going to go through what that is later. Lots of code. And then we're going to do imagine, which is another platform layer. And then we're going to add, what else are we going to add? We're going to add Seduce, which is the UI toolkit. And in order to run that, we need relinquish, which is all the files starting with R. And here we have Seduce, which is, the largest library. So we take all those files in seduce.h, and we press add. And Visual Studio thinks for a while, and then I get all my files. And I tend to just want to add some filters. So I'm going to add one for Forge, and then drag in my Forge files. I'm just sort of keeping it a little bit tidy, like so. And then let's do that again. Add new filter, relinquish, and we're going to add all the files that start with an R into that. And then another one, add new filter, Seduce. That's our main library, and I'm going to grab these .h files and put them in there, and all of the source files. I'm sure there's something old here that we're going to have to throw out once we actually get compiling. There we go. Okay, so we have Seduce, Forge, we relinquish, we don't have add new filter, Betray. So Betray is the platform layer, so we're going to take these and put them there. Betray keys can go in there as well. I forgot that one. Okay, so now it's starting to get a little tidy. And the last one is Imagine. So what I do is I generally take these header files that are sort of the external header files, and I'll just leave them. And I actually usually take these header files and remove them, put them like in the root of the project, because these are really, the things I want to access all the time. So I want to have them in the root. And then I remove header file. So we don't need that. Boom. Oops, that was not what I meant to do. I want to remove the directory. Yes, and I want to move source. We don't need that since we've moved everything. Okay, so now we have everything we need, I think. I'm sure I'm gonna come to the conclusion that I forgot something. Now we want to add an actual file that, we're gonna write. So I'm gonna add an existing file, and I know I don't have an existing file, but what I tend to do is I just go into the directory where all my files are. I pick a random file and I copy that. Boom. And then I rename that. Seduce tutorial.c, like so. And then I click on that. That way, I'm actually getting a file that is in the place where I have my source code instead of wherever the directory is. Boom. Okay. So let's just compile all this. So this shouldn't actually work because there's no main, but we can at least compile just for funsies. So let's write something here. So I'm going to start by writing include. So we're going to include some stuff, and this was very, very tiny. Can we make this larger? Why does hello? I don't understand. I can scroll. There we go. There we go. Now it's somewhat readable. So we're going to include some stuff. So we're going to start by including forge.h. So what is Forge? Forge is this file, and it's the thing I always include. So it has, defines pi, it, gives me some types, it has my memory debugger, it has, some simple basic math functions, it has noise functions, color, some geometry stuff, and then some text stuff, and sorting. Just this is kind of my version of the standard library. So it's just stuff I generally always need. And since this is always in all my projects, it's really good because I can put in defines here for debugging purposes. So I always start with Forge. And then after that, we need Betray. Betray is my platform library, or one of them. Actually, let's do these in order. Let's do Imagine first. So Imagine is this library, and it does things like loading dynamic libraries, things for threading. What else do we have here? Time, settings, and parsing paths. So there's some basic stuff. So this is everything that is like system dependent, but it's not, it doesn't have a UI. So if you're making a command line only tool or a server or something like this is what you need. But we need more than that. We need Betray, and Betray is a big part of what we're going to talk about today. It is what gives you, pointers, a window, and all that fun stuff that you want to, do to build an application. So we're going to go through that later on. Then we want to render something. We want to draw something. So we're going to add relinquish here. That is a wrapper around OpenGL. And we're not going to actually use that directly very much today. I think we're going to use Seduce, which is the next thing. And that is our UI toolkit. And the UI toolkit runs on top of all of these things. Okay, so now we have something. Okay, so what do we do now? We do int. Hold on, let me just. We're going to do int, and we're going to do main, and we're going to do int arg c and char. So normal C standard stuff. argv. There we go. So now we have a thing, and then we do a return true. So now we have the simplest possible program you can imagine. And let's see if we can compile this. I'm sure there's going to be something missing. There we go, it runs, and then it stops because it doesn't do anything. Okay, so let's now figure out what we can do to make this a little bit interesting. So I'm going to go and start up Betray. So we do that with a function called betray init, which is this thing. So we're going to copy that one in. And the first thing we have is what kind of context do we want? So I'm going to go to definition, and we want an OpenGL context. And then we're giving the argc and argv to this function, like so. And then we would need a window size. So we're going to say just 500 times 500. And then the number of samples, so that's if we want anti-aliasing and we want some of that, so we'll say 4. And then full screen, that's true or false. You can set that to, we're going to do false. And then we're going to name this application something. So that is going to be Seduce tutorial. There we go. Okay. So at this point, I think if we run this thing, it will look something like this. Okay, so we saw a window flash there and then it went away. That's not very useful. So we need to actually run this in something. And to do that, we're going to go to this thing. This is our main loop. So we have to set an action func, and then we have to launch that action func. So I'm going to copy this here, and then we're going to take this thing. I'm just going to copy that over here. So here we have a compute func, and we're just going to say, we're going to call this Seduce tutorial. What are we calling this? Let's think. Let's call it the main loop function. Okay, so now we have a main loop. We're going to make that a function. So, and then it has a user pointer. We can pass stuff into that. So I'm going to take that and give that as a parameter to this action func set. So we're setting an action function, and we don't need this. We're going to say null. And then we're going to launch our thing. Oops, we don't need that. And we don't need that. And then we're just say go. Let's see. So now we have a window. And now the application is running. We can change the window size. All is good. So we're starting to get somewhere. But let's make this a little bit nicer. So we're going to start a couple of things that we might need later. So for Imagine, Imagine has a settings system. So you have these functions. I'm going to grab these, all of them, and I'm just going to copy them in here for a second because we're going to go through them. So first of all, we're going to load some savings, like some settings. So we're going to do that before we run this. And I'm going to call this, I'm going to set a file name. So I'm going to do Seduce tutorial dot something, and this happens to be an XML file, so XML will be fine. Actually, let's call it text file. TXT. There we go. So now we have a loader here. And then when the application, it'll run in this main loop until we close the window. So whenever we close the window, we want to save our settings. So I'm going to take the same, almost the same function, like so. And I'm going to say we want to save the same file, like so. And now all the settings gets loaded and then they get saved. Great. What we now can do is we can actually use this. So for instance, I have two resolutions here. So I'm just gonna line break this to make it easier to see, like so. So now we have two 500 there. And those are integer numbers. So I'm gonna choose the function integer get. So I'm going to replace them with the integer get. And then we're going to have a setting. We're going to call this, what's the name of the setting? Well, let's call it screen res X, right? And the default value should be, say, for something like that. And then we need a comment, and that's just a text string that describes what this is. So, we should have an N there. This the window in the x-axis, something like that. Okay, and then we can just take all of this and we'll copy it to this thing, and we'll change this to y, and we'll change this to y, and we'll do 480 instead. Okay, so now we have this. So now I can run this application again. And now you can see the window is a different resolution, right? So we have 640 by 480 resolution of our window. Great. What's cool about this is that now if we actually go into our tutorial, let's see if I can find this, sorry. Seduce tutorial. So this is our project files. So when we run this, we get some output files and we get seduce tutorial.txt. And if we click on that, you get a file that looks like this. So it's an XML and it has the screen Y and the screen X and a little description. And here you see 480 and here's 640. So now, for instance, I can say, well, let's change this to 720 and this one to 1280, right? And then I'm going to save that file. And then I'm going to run the application again. And now I get a bit larger window and I didn't have to change anything. So this means that it's pretty easy to get settings in there. And we can actually be a little bit nicer with this because we can go into Betray and we can find there's a screen mode get function, which we're going to use a couple of times today. So we're going to go back to our, and after a loop, let's ask what the screen resolution is. So it takes two UINTs. So I'm going to place those here like so, these values, right? And we're going to do an AND here. So this function gives us the resolution of the window, and then we can get a Boolean if it's full screen, but we don't need that. So we just say null, don't care about that one. And then we're going to actually use in settings, we have use set, get, but we're going to use set. So which is the same thing. So I'm going to put that one there. We're going to say this, I'm going to copy all of this and give the same parameters here. And then we're going to copy that and change this to Y and change this to Y. And then instead of setting this values, we're going to set the values of the actual window like so. Okay, let's see if this works. So now we're running it, we're getting our resolution, and then I'm going to change the window to, I don't know, something tall. And then we're going to quit. And now when we start the application back up, it remembers the setting and we now have a nice window. Okay, so that shows you the settings system. And what's really nice is that if I actually go in here and you see this settings file, I can actually delete this. I'm going to delete that and run the application. And all of a sudden I get back the default values. I close the application and boom, the file's back. And this is super nice because it means that if a user accidentally deletes the file, they can't actually break the application. So that's kind of neat. We can remove this now. Next, let's actually do something in this window. So let's talk about input. And input you get in this structure here. And I usually use input as my name for that. And this structure is quite powerful and has lots of interesting things in it. So the first thing I want to show you is mode, and it's the most important thing. So I'm going to say if mode is equal to BAM, which is betray action mode, and draw. So this function will actually be called up to 3 times per frame. Once for draw, once for input or event, and once for time passing by. So time passes by no matter what you do. So if the application is closed or is not closed, but if it's minimized, you don't get any input and you're not drawing anything, but you still have time passing by. So we're going to do something here. So we're going to say when you're asking us to draw something, let's draw something. So in order to do that, we're going to have to set up some graphics-y stuff. So in order to do that, we're actually going to use a little bit of relinquish. And we're going to start by setting up a matrix. So we need to actually start our rendering. So we do that with this function called rinit. It's very simple. Whoops. So I'm going to place that once we have our OpenGL context, we can start relinquish. And relinquish needs the proc address. And the proc address is basically how you get functions from OpenGL. So in order to do that, we're going to have to go to betray because betray is what sets up the window. And in this, we're going to find, where are we? OpenGL. So this function, betray GL proc address get. So we're going to call that one. So I'm going to give that one here. So now we have initialized our rendering, which is awesome. And then let's actually set up our draw, and I'm going to make something super simple. I want to do, what do I want to do? Okay, so I'm going to go, and we need a matrix because we're going to do scaling and things like that. Hold on. So we find all our matrix stuff, and this is very common stuff that you would do with OpenGL. So here is my matrix library, and it does kind of all the things you would assume. So we're going to start with a couple of the, let's see. What do I actually need? I need this. Okay, I'm going to copy this. So first we need a matrix, and you can just place a matrix on the stack. So I could do matrix like so, and I can just say, here's my matrix, and I want you to initialize that. And then once that's done, I want to set the frustum. So that's the window size, which is this. And I again give my matrix. And here comes some magic. So we're going to set the left is going to be, hold on, this is going to be minus 0.01. And this is going to be 0.01. And then we need the bottom and top. And we can do the same thing here, but that actually isn't going to work. And then we're going to say the near plane is going to be this. And the far plane is going to be, say, 100 or something like that. So now we've set our camera. This is actually wrong, and we're going to get to why. Because now we essentially have made, we were assuming that the window is always square, and it's not. Okay, so that's all good. And then we actually have to set this matrix as our current matrix, because you can have, and we use this function to set the matrix, and that will allow everything that gets drawn from here on to use that matrix. And actually, just to be clear at the end of this, just to not do anything stupid, we're going to say set matrix to null, so we don't accidentally call it. There we go. Okay, so now we want to draw something, and I'm not quite sure what to draw. Let's start with some text. So I'm going to use Seduce for this. And Seduce has a whole bunch of text stuff, but we're going to start with the simplest one, which is text line draw. So we draw this, and we're going to put that here. And again, you should only call this if you're in draw mode. And actually, we forgot something. Hold on. We need to call relinquish. Hold on. There is a screen clear. We need to clear the frame. I think it's at the bottom somewhere. Sprites. Here we go. Frame buffer clear. That's the one we want. And it's essentially a wrapper around OpenGL clear. So I'm going to do that one, and we can say we want it 0.2, 0.0, and then 0.6. And then alpha can be 0, and then we do want to clear the color. True. And we do want to clear the depth buffer and stencil buffer. There we go. Actually, let's remove this for now and go. Let's see if we can. There we go. So now we have at least a background color. But let's draw some text. So the text gives you a font, and I'm going to set that to null. And you can actually request a font. So if you go into this, you will see there are load fonts. So you can load a TrueType font. You can get all the fonts that are available and get the names for those fonts. And you can also get a font by ID, and you can set a default font. But we're not going to do that. We're just going to use the regular one. I am going to use these defines, which just happen to be good defines for some of the kerning. So we're going to move them over here for now. So we're going to put this at the center of the screen. So 0 and 0. And the letter size is going to, I'm just going to take this value. I think that's going to be quite small. So I'm just going to do times 10. And letter spacing, I'm going to take this one, which is kind of the default. And then text, we're going to do hello world. And then let's do it white. So red, green, blue, alpha, all of them just white. And then length is just how long do we want to draw? And we want to draw forever. So I'm just going to do, where is that? Come on. There we go. I want this. So like maximum number of bits. Okay, so let's see what happens if we draw this. Oh, okay. I forgot something. Oh yeah, break. I didn't initialize Seduce, of course. So Seduce has a Seduce init, which we need to set. So I'm going to put that here after relinquish. There we go. Okay, let's try again. And we don't see any text. I'm not quite sure why. No text today. Oh, I think I know why. We need to translate everything backwards. Because right now we're drawing everything in backward space, I think. So we're going to see if I can do this right. So we'll put this to 0, 0, and -1, I think. We'll see. There we go. Hello world. And now we're starting to see the problems because if I rescale this, you can see that things don't work the way we want them to. So why is this? Okay, so now we want to do a couple of things. We actually need to tell the system what the resolution is and that the resolution is changing. So we need to read out the resolution here as well as we did before. So I'm going to copy this piece of code and I'm going to put it into this thing. And actually, I'm going to put it outside of draw because we pretty much always are going to need this information. And this function gives you x and y, but it also returns a value. It returns a double, which is the aspect of the screen. So we're going to use that. So we're going to say aspect and like so. So now we have the aspect. And now we can tell relinquish that we want to tell it about the new updated viewport. So where is that? I think it's it's somewhere in the matrix area. I don't seem to be able to find it. Raise. There we go, viewport. This is the one, I think. So we wanted to set the viewport, and it starts at 0, 0, and ends at these resolutions, like so. And then this frustum should scale with the aspect. So these values shouldn't be 1 and 1, they should be 1 times the aspect. There we go. Let's see if this is better. Okay, so we have hello world, and now it moves correctly and scales with the window, which is great. So one thing to note is here, I can make this super large, is that the text is completely scalable, and everything in this UI toolkit is scalable. So cool. Okay, so we're starting to get somewhere. Now you can do some fancy stuff, like let's say we want centered text, and the text actually has a text length function, so we can use that one. So we go back to our tutorial, and we're going to do this, and I'm just going to add a floating point f here, and we're going to say f is equal to whatever this thing is, and then we use null as our font, and size as times 10, spacing, and then we'll do the hello world here, and the end is the same as this thing. So what this function does is computes the length of this text string. And then we can use that here and say we want the x position to be f times 0.5 or minus 0.5. Okay, so let's try that. And now our text is centered. You can see I can move it, I can change it, it just works. Cool. And then we can do some more fancy stuff. So I'm going to add a char string here. So we're going to have a string, because obviously I'm writing hello world twice, so we don't need that. So we're going to exchange that for this, and put that one there, and take this one like so, right? And the string goes there, right? So now we have, the same application, just we store the string pointer there instead. So let's say that you're making a multilingual application. So actually, Seduce has a translation system. So let's find out where that is. Here we go. So this is the translation system, which is super, super simple. So all you do is you wrap this thing with a function called Seduce translate. So we want to translate hello world like so. And then we need to save and load that. So here's somewhere in the beginning, after we've started up Seduce, we can say, hey, load a translation file. So let's actually do that. You can do that before. So I can do it here. And I can now say, txt. So now we have our translation file, and then I'm going to copy that and put that at the end and change that to this, save. So now we're loading our translation here and then saving our translation here. Awesome. Okay, so why is this useful? Well, if you run the application now, it says hello world like it did before. But if we check out our file, we now have a Seduce translation file. And if we look at that one, it looks like this. So here it says ID and a bunch of numbers and then hello world. And then I can change that to hey, something like that, and save that file, and then run the application again. And now we have Swedish, poorly spelled Swedish. And again, so this means that anybody can now change anything. And if you delete a line, or delete the whole file for that matter, the application doesn't break. It goes back to hello world. So this means you can really easily make translation files. And one of the nice things about this is that if you don't speak a language, but your users do, they can provide their own files. So it's really easy to edit and create, German or French or whatever they want. Cool. And then, of course, we can do the same thing. It says Seduce tutorial. So, of course, we can wrap that with our Seduce translate. So, like so, and, let's see what it says. It says Seduce tutorial up there. I'm closing that. if I load here, it says Seduce tutorial. Now I can change that to nice window. Save that file and go back, and now it says nice window up here. So yeah, it goes for all text you use. Cool. So now let's talk a little bit about Seduce. So right now we're just doing a non-interactive application, but we want to kind of do something more interesting. And Seduce lets you do a lot of interesting UI stuff. So let's make the simplest thing, which is, we'll actually start with betray. So I just want, when I write my applications, it can be super easy to get locked or something like that, and you want to be able to quit your application very quickly. So I can ask a bunch of features here. So the first one is get button, and this will just say, was this particular button pressed? And there's also another one which says, is the pressed, and was it pressed the last frame? I'm going to use this one because it's simple, and we're going to put that here, and I'm going to put that inside of an if input mode BAM event, right? So for an event mode, I don't actually think you need to do that, but it looks prettier. Then if this button is pressed, and user ID is essentially, Betray supports multiple users. So for instance, Betray supports platforms that have like multiple keyboards and multiple mice. So that means that if you have two mice and two keyboards, you want to be able to say, hey, I want keyboard number 1 or keyboard number 2 or keyboard, whatever. But you could also do -1, which means you get whatever keyboard presses the button, right? And then we need a key code for this, and we can find those in Betray. Scroll up here, there's a bunch of them. So let's do F10 as a classic. So I'm going to put F10 here. And then I'm just going to say exit. I'm not going to do anything fancy. And then we can run the application. I can press F10 and, the application actually crashes. And the reason why it crashes, by the way, is because in this version, for some reason, I have turned on a flag here, which is exit crash. And exit crash replaces every time you run an exit with a function that always crashes. And the reason why I do that sometimes is because if your application just quits and you don't know where it quit, just quit, you can turn on exit crash, and now I can look in my debugger and see, oh, this is the exit that crashed. So I know this was the exit that actually run, which is of course really useful, especially if you have a lot of things that can exit. It can be sometimes useful to know what exited. So let's actually remove that for now, like so, and let's restart it. See if it works again. And it's building, and it's building. It has to rebuild everything because Forge is included into everything. I hope it's done soon. Visual Studio has not gotten faster, but it's at least a lot faster than C++. Okay, there we go, and we press F10, and boom, it goes away. Cool. So now let's make a button. So I'm going to go into Seduce, and I'm going to make a text button, which is the easiest button you can make. Now, I've been cheating a little bit because I have not used Seduce correctly, and I'm going to show you why. Whenever you use Seduce, you need to set some stuff. and you need to set the element end frame. So I'm going to show you what that is. We're going to go, and that's just in your main loop. You need to tell Seduce that this is the end of the loop. And it needs to do a little bit of cleanup and stuff, and we're going to show why. It has a debug settings here, and I'm going to set that to false. But we're going to turn that on later on just to be able to see what's going on a little bit. Okay, so now let's make a text button. So I'm going to do, we have the text line draw, but I'm actually going to use this function called a text button, right? And we're going to place that here. So text button is kind of one of those nice functions because you don't have to have a wrapper around it, because it essentially reads input itself and figures out, should I draw or what should I do? And then we're going to actually use our string again. So I'm going to do this, and I'm going to say, we're going to have a button like so. And here we're going to have button, and we're going to say, I'm going to do an if statement around this button. So if somebody clicks on it, and I'm going to do this, and then we pick where we want it. So again, I'm going to take 0 because I want it at the center of the screen, but I want it high up. So what we're going to do is we're going to say aspect minus a little bit, so 0.1, for instance. And then center, we're actually going to set this to 0.1 because this drawing has the ability to move, so we want this text centered. And then we'll use the same, say, size and spacing as before. And then we want the actual text, and that's the string. And then we need the color, and we can set it to 1, 1, 1, and 1. And then comes the selected one, which is a different color. So I'm going to set that to 1, and then 0, and 0, and 1. So we get a white color and then a red color. Okay, and then this ID is magical. And what it is a unique ID. So it needs to be any kind of pointer that is consistent each time you run this. And we happen to have one, which is the string. So we're going to use that string and say, this is the thing that is always the same. And then we're going to put an exit inside of this, and then we're going to run the application. So now we get this, and you can see we have a button here, and as soon as I mouse over it, it becomes red, and if I click on it, we exit. So that's pretty straightforward. So let's not have it over there because it's kind of ugly. So I'm going to make it smaller. I'm going to make it, say, 0.5, actually 3 times. And then we're going to do, we're going to set it to 1 so that it's completely in the back. And then we're going to do aspect. And then instead of +1, we're going to do plus this. And we're going to do, actually aspect minus aspect. So we get at the lower end of the screen. And then we're going to do 1. So we get it the furthest right. And then since this is 1, we're actually going to move it to the left. So let's see what this turns into. So now we have the button here down in the corner. So we have a little thing. And then, of course, we want something better. We want to call it like exit or something. I shouldn't actually use this, but whatever. We're just playing around. There we go. So I have an exit, and I can highlight over it. Great. Awesome. So now, let's talk a little bit about, actually, let's not. Let's draw some more stuff. So let's say I want to have a window on the side, and that window should have some text or parameters in it. So in order to do that, let's see, I'm going to use some background. And this is a little bit of a magic thing because now we're going to use a background object drawing. And you can do that in a couple of different ways. So I'm going to do a square, and I'm going to do, let's see, I need all of this, and there's a bunch of different kinds, and I need surface draw. There we go. Okay, so now we're gonna go to our tutorial, and I'm actually gonna do a function here just for this. So we're gonna call, and we're gonna copy all of this, and we're gonna put that there, and we're gonna need an object. There's a couple of ways you can do this, but I'm gonna call this an object, and you start by allocating the object. So actually, first of all, we want to say if input, oh, I'm cheating a little bit too much now. Input mode is equal to BAM draw, right? So if we're drawing, then we're doing all this stuff. And let's call this tutorial side, let's not call it windows, we call it side panel. Don't need that. Okay, so we're taking this and we're placing it in our code somewhere, say here. So here's our side panel, and we need our input, and then we're just going to draw some stuff. So we're going to allocate an object, and we're then going to free this object, and then we're going to add a square, which is this thing, in between. And then we're gonna, where is it? We're gonna draw the whole thing like so. So this is the draw function. I'm just copying and pasting here. Okay. And then we're gonna need this, and we're actually gonna need two of those. There we go. There we go. Okay, so we have our object. So the first thing, we allocate our object, then we set our object. And we have an ID here. I'm not going to care about that. I'm going to set that to null right now. Part is also null, and we're going to get to that later. And now I can say, where do I want my window? So I'm going to say I want my window at a -1. And then at the bottom, and I don't, let's say -3. And this is going to be 0. I don't want it in depth. And then what the X size is, say 0.6 or something like that. And the Y is also 0.6. Actually, this should be minus. There we go. And then I can set a color for this. And I like blue. So I'm going to do 0.8. This is my favorite fast color to do. Oops. 0. There we go. Okay, and then we want to draw the whole thing. So we want to use input, and it needs the object. So we're going to draw the object. And then we're going to say time is 1, which means that everything is happening. And there we go. Okay, let's see if this actually turns into something. There we go. So now we have a square over here. That's really cool. The problem is that the square, I want the square to go to the bottom and the top of the window, and it doesn't. So we need to scale it somehow. So I'm going to start by making the background black, just because, come on. There we go. So now we have that, and how do we find out how high we go? Well, we need aspect, and I can either read out aspect again, or I can take it as a parameter. I'm going to read it again because it's easy, and this time I don't need the actual resolution, so I'm going to skip that one and just get the aspect. And then I say this window should start at minus aspect, and hold on. And it should be, the height should be aspect times 2. There we go, because and that will give me a window. Looks like that, right? So now we have a split screen, and we can put stuff in that window. Great. That's really fun, but we can also actually animate stuff. So right now, this window has 0.6, but I can easily say, plus sine. So we're going to do a sine wave here. Actually, I think I need math for that. Otherwise, bad things will happen. So I'll do this, and do this, and math. There we go. So we're going to have a sine wave here, and then we need time, right? We need to know what time it is, and there's actually some neat ways you can do that, because input has a timer, which is called minute time, and it goes from 0 to 1 every minute. So that's obviously too slow, so we're going to multiply that by, say, 60. So now it does 1, and then we're going to do times, say, pi. So now we get that. So and this is too much, so let's do 0.3 times sine. Okay. So let's see what this is. Right, and now we have a moving thing that moves in a sine wave, and my God, I made it slow. So let's just do, there we go. 6 instead of 60, then it's slow. Okay, there we go. So now we have something moving. That's pretty awesome. This is kind of stupid. You don't want a window that moves like this. But it'd be really nice if you could move it, right? So let's do that. So we're going to take a value here, and we're going to do a static float, and say do window size, and I'm going to set that to, say, let's actually do position and set that to 0. And 0 happens to be the center of the screen. So we're going to do this. So we're going to say we're -1. So we're going to do +1 here. So now we're getting a window that is in the center of the screen, splits everything. Great. But let's make it a little bit interactive. So now we're going to do, we're going to take Seduce, and we're going to go to all the fancy things. So there are a bunch of manipulators here. So let's find one of those. Other thing. Here we go. Manipulators. And I want a point that moves in an axis. So I'm going to take this function, and I'm going to put it in my tutorial. Okay, so here we go. So now we have a position, and we're going to do input. And actually now we need the matrix, so I'm going to add that as well. So I'm going to add that here as a parameter, and we're going to use our matrix here on the, like so. We're passing in the matrix. We're going to do like that, and then so we're going to say matrix, and then we need a position. So I'm going to actually change this to 3 values and turn them into 0, 0, and 0. And now all of a sudden this doesn't work, so we're just going to read out one of the values, which is the x-axis. So all of these manipulators take 3 values, and then we need an ID that is unique. And we actually have, this value is unique, right? We're not using this anywhere. So I could just take this and say, hey, this is a pointer, use this one. And then I'm going to use snap. If I use, I'm not going to use snap. That's basically, you can give an ID that you want to snap to, and we don't. So we're going to say null. And is the snap active? And of course it is not. So we're going to set that to false. And then which axis we want, the x-axis would be the number 0, and then size, we'll set that to 0.1. Okay, so let's see what happens now. So now there should be a little point here that I can click on, but there isn't. Interesting. Okay, let's see if I made it too small. And actually this might be perfect because we might actually, there we go. There's a teeny tiny point there, and I can grab that, and now I can move this window. Awesome, right? So now I have a somewhat interactive thing. You can see there's a little icon there, right? And now we're going to start with the fun stuff. So what you can do is that you can go, oh wait, let me change the window because it's going to be hard to see. Where's the window? I'm just going to change it to gray for a second, just to make it easier. So that's gray. And now I'm going to turn on this debug function. True. And it's going to look a little bit different. So now you can actually see my mouse pointer, and you can see there's a blue little cross there. And that's actually when I hit that, that's when the collision is active. You can also see there's a collision down here for the exit, and you can see those little square around it. So by turning on debug mode, I can essentially see what I'm doing in terms of the collision detection. Now, I can actually do something really nice here because I don't want to have a little handle here. I want to be able to grab the whole line, right? If I grab here or here, I should be able to do this. So what you can do is you can go into Seduce, and at the bottom, you can actually access the sort of internals of this. And here you can add a geometry, and this geometry will be hit detection. You can also query, is the mouse pointer over a specific ID or something like this. And this is actually what the library uses to implement a lot of the stuff that you see here. So we're going to do a line. So here's a line, and we're going to go over here. Hold on, where are we? Back to our thing. So I'm going to add a line here in this. And this is an invisible line, but I'm going to give it the same ID as this, and the part is 0, because there's some IDs that have multiple parts, but not this one, so we won't care about that. So let's input, and then I need an X and 2 points in XYZ. So we can use this, but let's actually create another one, and it was called position 2, and we'll initialize that one as well. 0, 0, and 0. And we don't use the x-axis, so we're going to, so the y-axis, so we're going to set this to 10, and we're going to set this to -10. So now we're really high up and really low. We should actually use like positive and negative aspect, but let's be a little bit lazy. Okay, and then now we want to use this as our starting point, and this as our endpoint. And obviously, window position is going to change all the time. So therefore, the x value changes. So then we want to make sure that the x value is the same on the other one. Okay. So this is 0, 0. Okay, so now we copy those two, and then we get a size here as a 0.01 or something like that, and then go. So now you can see there's a blue line here, and we can actually grab that. Maybe I made it too small. I think so. I must have made it super tiny. Let's see if we can make it larger. I don't think it is that large. Oh, hold on. Actually, this should only be in draw, because this is part of drawing actually. There we go. So now we have a thick line here. You can see it highlights, and when I grab that, whoops. Oh, something went wrong. Huh. What did I do wrong? Huh. Now I'm a bit stumped. Why did it move like that? I'm copying this to that. This. Huh. Not quite sure why is it moving more than I should? It is definitely doing that. Huh. I need to figure that one out. I'm missing something, I'm pretty sure. What if I'm just gonna not do this just to see what happens. So now you can see it tilting. It still doesn't. Let me just check this one. Okay. I have no idea what's going on. We have been stumped by our own code. So we are adding this and this. Am I missing something? We're doing that one. Oh, we can do this one to 0, by the way. That shouldn't change anything, but... Oh, no, okay. Okay, it moves too fast. I don't know why. We're going to move on, because I don't have time for this. Oh, wait, is it... Let's just try this one differently. It shouldn't make a difference. Oh, it does. Huh. Oh, is it at a different depth? I think it might be. Okay. What if I do... Hold on, where's this? This... Oh, I know why. Hold on. We need to make these separate. Let's call this A. Let's do this. A and B. Let's call them that. And this positive, and then do A and B is the same, and then, yeah, A and B. I think that's what I need to do. Yeah, there we go. No? Okay. I'm going to figure this out at some point, but we can move this. That's the important part. I'm sure I'm going to like wake up tomorrow morning and be like, of course, I'm stupid. But that's that. So now we want to put some stuff in here. So we can, for instance, put a string thing. So let's add another char text. So we're going to just put some text in here, 256. And we're just gonna give it something. So I'm just gonna do not this. I'm gonna do A. Just gonna fill it with something. B, C, 0. Okay. So now we have a short, simple string there. And we want to edit this. So what we want to do is go to Seduce, and we want to find a text editor. Where is it? Come on. Here we go. Widgets and text. Yeah, so here we have text edit line. So we're going to take that one and we're going to put it here and we're going to say input, and then we need an ID and we're going to use the text itself because it's easy. Font, we're just going to do null again because we want the default font. Text is the text, and the text buffer size is 256. And the precision, let's say that the precision is zero, minus one. And let's say that it's, we need the aspect. So we're going to do aspect minus something. And we're going to have our size. Let's do this text size. We're going to do this times, say, 3. Let's get it some space. And then we need the length. And the length is the same as the window, right? So we do this just so we have, so our text doesn't fall off. And then we need the size, which is this thing. So we use the size. And then we can do label. And we can do some text here. So put text here. And then we want it to the left. And that is true. And then we can have a command function pointer if we wanted to call that when I'm done typing, but we don't, so null. And then there's a user pointer for that. We don't need that either. And then we want a color, so I'm going to do 0.7 for red, and the same for green, and the same for blue. And the alpha, let's make the alpha 1. And then use, for active color, we're going to use this white. This gives us just a little bit of, you can see when you're mousing over this thing, like so. Okay, let's try this. I'm sure I did something wrong, but. Okay, so now we have here, it's teeny tiny. You can see it's up there. It says our ABC. Let's make it much larger because nobody can see this on stream. So we're going to do 10. Whoops, 10. And then we're going to put that also here because we want to move it down a bit, right? Great. So let's see. There we go. So now you have text here, and you can see when I highlight over it, it goes active, and then I can actually type. So I can say, hello, right? So now we've made a very simple text editor. Text, right? You can type in anything. You can see it ends over here. So if we keep typing, it actually, you know, it's not using more space. And of course, we can, you know, type text. And if we now grab this, you can see it moves, scrolls, right? So that's text editing for you. Cool. Then the colors are boring, so let's add some colors to this. So we're going to go into Seduce. And I just want to show you that I'm going to go through all of these because there's an awful lot of them. All of these functions, they return an idle if they're not active, or an active if somebody's typing, and a done the frame where somebody presses enter. There's a couple of versions of this. There's the line one, which I used to use. There's an obfuscated one, which is for like typing in passwords and things like that. So you get like ... There's a double and a float one, and that's for typing in numbers. So instead of getting a string pointer, you get a float or double pointer. And the same goes with the integers. So you can do like number typing. There's a function to query whether or not something is active. So if you give the ID of the same function, it tells you true or false if it is active. There is also larger things you can do with text. So I'm going to make one a larger thing here, which is a block of text. So we're going to do this. We're going to copy a block of text. And we're going to say it is, where is it positioned? It is aspect. Hold on. It's -1 and like so. And this is a little bit further down because we need to be below. So 6. And then line size, there's a thing here. Let's do this one. Holy. Line size is this thing. We're not doing any spacing right now, which makes this quite ugly, but we'll live with it for now. And then height, we get to decide how high it is. So let's just say 0.5 or something like that. Line spacing, there's actually default line spacing that I use. So I'm just going to copy that instead of guessing what's a good number. Oh, we're here. Of course, I copied it over there. I can remove this trash. There we go. And then comes the style, which is how we want our text. And then we can say if it's left, center, or stretch. Let's do stretch. So let's do style, stretch. And then text, we don't have a text. And the text position is where we want to start. And you can start in 0. And then we have block things. So we need a block. And that is sort of a structure that describes what the text looks like. So we're going to take a look at that here. And we need some text. Where do we go? Okay, so let's go to, where were we? Yeah, so let's go here to our documentation at gamepipeline.org and just like copy this text just to have a little bit of text. And I'm going to put it over here. So we're going to do Seduce sample text is equal to this thing. Boom. So now we have a long line of some text there. Char. Okay, so now we have some sample text. So we're going to put that as our text here. And mode count is going to be 1. And let's have a look at what this mode thing does. It gives you this. So why is this such a complicated structure? Because you can actually give lots and lots of different sizes. So you can have text where you change text, you change size and color of the text in the middle of the text. So therefore you can't just give one value. So I'm going to copy this here. So the first character position is 0 because we're starting at this point. The font is, we're going to have the default font. So we're going to set that to null. And then we're going to do the color, or something like that. And we're going to set that to 0.8. We'll be fine for all, whoops. Like so and like so. And let's do alpha 1. And then we're going to need some letter size and spacing. So we're going to do, this is probably too big. But we're going to do, let's say 3. And then where's the spacing? I had it over here. There we go. Space is the one I want. That's the default value. So there we go. Modes, probably not a good name, but we'll live with that. And then we give this to this thing like so. Okay, that was a lot of typing. So let's see what this looks like. Oh, that did not work. So, oh, I actually have to give a font for this one, but that's easy done. We can actually just give it the default font, like so. Should probably change that. Let's try this. There we go. So now we have a bunch of text here. And you can see when I change the window, it just works. It's kind of ugly because there's like, there's no spacing here, but we can fix that. So I'm just going to say, instead of starting at -0, we're going to start at minus not 0.9. And then the size of the window is going to be smaller. So we're going to do 0.8 instead, like so. There we go. So now we have some spacing here. Looking nice. I should probably do the same with this thing. So let's do that. Let's say the window 8, like so. And then, where is the window position? Oh, that's it, actually. Oh, there we go. -1 should be -0.9. Okay, let's have a look. Okay, so now we have a window up here, and hello. Right? And the text here is scalable. And actually, there is a different block here that gives you, that is editable. So this one isn't. So you can do this. Cool. And actually, there's a fun thing you can do. I'm going to reuse this and call this one again. But I'm going to put it on the other side. So I'm going to say the starting point is the window size plus 0.1. And the end point is let's see, 1.8 minus this thing. So now we're going to get two windows next to each other with the same text, right? And you can see when I move them, right? That's cool. But they start at the same spot. So what I want to do is I want to know where this thing ends. And this, it turns out, spits out a value. So we're going to do a uint text end, right? And we're going to take this text end and read out whatever this block is. So that will give me the character of where this text thing ends, right? And then I actually have a, oh, sorry, it was the wrong one. This one, the first one. And then here I have a 0, which is the text start. So I can put my text end there. And now you can see that you can read the text, and by enabling the debug mode, these are now, the text is moving between them. So it's quite easy to make a UI where you have multiple blocks of text, and as you resize them, they change, which is kind of neat. Okay. Oops, that was not what I meant to do. Okay, so I'm gonna turn this off because it just got a little bit too much on screen, but at least you can now see how you can do advanced stuff. Okay, finally, we want to add some manipulators here, or some UI stuff. So there are, oh yeah, let's show some tool tips. We want to put some tool tips here. So I'm going to add a tooltip, and then I'm going to say, hey, here's this text edit. So I'm going to put a tooltip somewhere, and I'm going to give it the input, and then I'm going to give the ID that I'm using for this, which happens to be text. So I'm going to say tooltip, and here I'm going to set some tooltip text. So I'm going to say T in your text here, right? And then I have a more extended one, and I'm going to set that to null for now. Let's see how this works. So now when I move my mouse over here, you can see I got a tooltip. So it says type in your text here. And as soon as I go over this, you can see it also moves a little bit depending on where I'm on screen. And you can do another. This is what this thing does, right? And then let's try this. Let's see if this works. So now if I move this, you know, it grows after a second, you get this much longer text. So, you know, fast and then longer, right? Boom. It's pretty nifty. Okay, that's cool. Let's make some more stuff. So now we want to go back to Seduce and let's do some widgets. So there's some buttons you can do. There is a sliders and things like that. What do we want? Let's make a slider just for fun. So this is a slider. So we're going to add that to our thing. So I'm going to add it down here. And again, we have an input, and then we need an ID, and we need a value. So I'm going to go up here and add a static value that we can play with. So static and slider value, and let's call that 0.5. Like that. Okay, and now we can use that. We'll give a pointer to that value and say this is what we want to change, and we give an ID, and we can use the same pointer. And then we need an X position, so that should be 0. It should be 0.9, which gives it in the end of it. And then we're going to do this thing where the window position is the X end minus 0.1. So now we have a position. Then we need to figure out where it is in height. And I think what did I say? I said, so aspect, this thing is how far the other block was. So we're going to do, can we just type this out? So this is the top of this text block, and the text block is 0.5 long. So we're going to do minus 0.5 and then minus just some spacing. So I'm going to use the text spacing as a guide for how far. So this is my X position. Did I not have F? Oh, float F. Okay. And now I'm going to use that as my Y coordinates, F and F. And then size, I'm not sure what the size is, but 0. I think it's, I don't remember which ones these are. And then we need a minimum value, which we're going to set to 0. A maximum value, which is set to 1. A time value, which we haven't worked on time yet, but we're going to say 1. And then a color value. And then snaps. Let's set snaps to. And what color are we going to set? Let's create a color somewhere. So we're going to do a we're going to do a static right, and we're going to do 3 values. Oh, there's 4 values, and those are, I don't know what we want. I think we're going to make this thing black, like so, and give that to this thing. Okay. Oh, we didn't make that a pointer. Right, let's see what this does. Oh, we got a very large slider. That's too big. We want a small slider. And of course, I don't remember which value was which. Time, max, size, I think. It should be something like, I don't know, let's try this. Yep, so now we have a slider here. We can move, but I definitely picked the wrong position. Oh yeah, I made this one, it should be minus here. There we go. So now I have a slider here. I can move this thing and it changes. Cool. And actually, we can, for a second, let's just turn off the debugging on the UI just to make it look a little cleaner and nicer. There we go. So now you can see my slider down here. See how everything is scalable, the text. And of course, I can add, just like with everything else, I can add a, yeah, whatever. I can add a tooltip. So I can do tooltip here and use my slider ID and then let's remove this. Something like that, right? And now, tooltip. Okay, so this shows you a little bit about how easy it is to build an application. I want to do one more thing. We talked about colors before, and we'd never finished that. So there's a bunch of stuff here you can do, and they're all kinds of similar. But I kind of want to use this one, which is a color wheel. So let's add a color wheel to this. We'll put it here. And the color wheel, let's put input and then do let's just call this color because and let's make it 0.5 color and use that here, we'll use that here, and then we need to pick a place. So I'm going to use the same algorithm here. I'm only going to do 2 here, just to get further down. So this would be, let's see, F. And then the X position, I'm just going to do minus 0.9. We'll get it in the corner. Actually, let's use this. Put it in the other end, like so. And then size and scale, we'll set them to whatever values we had here. Size and scale. And then time, we should totally talk about time. Okay, let's have a look. So now we have a color selector here, and we can pick a color in the color wheel. And you can control how big this thing is. I think it's set to something large. Let's do this. I think that's smaller. Yeah, so now you get a little window here. And obviously you should put some text here to describe what this thing does. But then, obviously, we're drawing this background. We can totally use this color. So let's put this here. So we do 0, 1, and 2. Like so. And now you can change the color of your window. It's pretty cool. Okay, that's all fun and games. Let's move on. So now we worked on this panel for a bit, and that's all neat. But let's make something in the background here. So I'm going to start a new panel function, and we're going to do, what are we going to do? We're going to call it space. And I'm going to move that and put it next to this thing, like so, and like so, and like so. Okay, so now we want to draw something in 3D. Because 2D is fun, but 3D is funner. Oh, we should do that. Okay, so we have a bunch of stuff we can do. So the first thing we're going to do is use a camera. So I'm going to find a camera. And we have that down here. So this is our camera. So we're going to create a view, and we're going to set that view, and then we're going to draw. So I'm going to use this here, like so. So one of the things about the matrices is you don't actually need to have a view. You can just use null because there's one built in, and then you don't have to create it. And since we're only going to have one camera in this, why not just stick with that? So we're going to initialize this and set that in our matrix. So now we're applying our view. And then I'm just gonna copy this code for fun, like so. I'm gonna put that here. I'm just gonna take this and put that here, and like so. So now nothing happens, and we need a betray matrix somewhere around here. Where is our matrices? No, that was the wrong one. Relinquish. So we're going to do a push and a pop. So we're going to push a new matrix here, like so. Take our matrix and push it one step, and then we're going to pop it. And we're going to pop it at the end of this function. So we're going to say if, and then we're going to put this here, and then pop. So, okay, we don't have all these things. So we're just going to add a square that is like from minus 0.5 and 0.5. And then we're going to make it size 1 and 1. And the color, we don't have this, so we're just going to do 0.0 and 0.5. So we get sort of purpley thing. And then this we don't need. Okay. So let's see what happens now. So now we're drawing a square here in the background, and that's all good. We do want to, make it slightly different, because now we're going to add a camera controller. So to do that, we go into Seduce, and here we have a bunch of ways of controlling our camera. And my favorite is right button look. So we're going to call that one, and like so. And we're going to say our view, which we're using the default one, and then our input. And this is only for our event mode. So we're going to put a little event here. Like so. Okay, so now let's see what this does. Now, if I press the right mouse button, nothing seems, oh, wait. Why is nothing happening? Hold on. Okay, just gonna check that I'm doing everything correct. Oh, it does check itself. Okay, this seems correct. So where am I going wrong with this? Hold on, I'm missing something. I am setting this, and then I'm drawing, and this one is, does this one care about this? I think it does. Now I'm a bit dumbfounded here again. Oh, it's because I'm running this. I should totally not do that because I'm initializing it each frame, so I think it already is initialized. Yes. No? Okay. Why? Let's see if... I just want to see if this is active. If it ever becomes active. Sorry, I'm just debugging for myself. Yes, it does become active. Okay. So why isn't it working? I'm missing something very obvious, and I don't know what. Hold on. Let me just check my... I wonder if we put this to null instead. That shouldn't make a difference. Okay, let's take our text and move that just to check. Where's our hello world string, blah, blah, blah. Just gonna, we don't need all the translation stuff. Just need the text. I'll draw that here. And then do 0 and string. Not quite sure why this isn't working. And it says string here at least. There we go. Something happened. Oh, is it my mouse is giving up? Yeah, look at that. Look at that. It does happen. Okay. Okay. So we do have a camera move. And then let's see if we can add the other ones. So we're going to go to Seduce and we have keys, which is a classic. Let's use that one like so. And again, null, input ID should be null because we don't use that. Okay, here we go. So, yeah, now I can move everything. I'm not sure why it doesn't rotate. That's strange to me. But yeah, we have something. Okay. You can also control this in many other ways. Just trying to understand why this one isn't working. Let's just remove this to make it a little cleaner. Yeah, something strange. It feels like everything except rotate. And I'm not quite sure why. Okay. So, should I figure that out or should I keep going? I'm a bit weirded out that it doesn't work. Let me check this identity, Frustum, blah, blah, blah. I'm doing everything right here, I'm pretty sure. Oh, let's do, let's make that one a, no, not a const, but a static. No, I'm not quite sure what's going on. I think this one, though, let's see if I can remove that. See if that makes a difference. No. I mean, it scales really nicely. Now you can see that my text is really scalable. But if that's not what you want to do, that doesn't help. Okay. What can we do then? We have scroll wheel, we have look at, we have mouse look. Which ones am I using? Oh, we can do slide. Is that the one? We should turn on slide. I'm not sure if that will make a difference, but oh, maybe that there's a bug there in somewhere. Nope. Okay. Not quite sure what to do now because everything is not working the way it should be. Hold on. Let's see. Oh, I think I know what's going on. I'm not calling update. There's an update function, isn't there? Yes, this one. Sorry, my bad. So I need to call this somewhere. And I need to call that in, I think it, yeah. So I need to call this in main. And this is essentially saying animate the camera. So we need that. And then we need a delta value, and we have that at input delta time. There we go. Okay. A lot of times when I do this, I kind of copy and paste a little bit. So there we go. So now we have a text string that is rotating. Cool. Right? And I can move this out of the way. There we go. So we have 3D. Cool. Let's actually remove the hello world text because it's getting kind of annoying. So let's do this and do that and remove this. Okay. So now that we have a bit of 3D going on, let's make something out of it, right? We have some text and we can spin that around and zoom, but that doesn't actually do what we want to do. So I'm going to, let's see what we want to do here. So we want to do this translate, by the way, which moves everything back. We want to do over here because we want to move, we don't want to move back the camera when we're in space mode, but when we're in panel. So I'm going to take this and remove it from this, but I'm gonna add it here. So like so. Okay, let's see if everything is correct. Yes, and now I can move and everything rotates correctly. right? Looks kind of cool. Actually, I'm gonna set the panel, the default, to something else. So I'm gonna set this to minus 0.5. And then the panel gets a little bit smaller so we don't have to move it all the time, right? When we're playing around. Okay, so what I did show you was that you can add a bunch of change keys, and the right mouse button, you can change the camera with that. So if you hold down the right mouse button and then you tumble and then you left, right and left to zoom and right and middle to pan. You can also use keys for that. So that's the Alt, Control, and Shift. So I've added support for that as well. There's others. So we can do, maybe we want scroll wheel to work. So let's add scroll wheel support. Let's just one line of scroll wheel and null and this and input like so. And here we go. And now I'm scrolling and you can zoom. Cool. There's also multi-touch, which is, if you have a multi-touch display, you can add support for that. I don't actually have that, so let's not do that right now for this application. But we do want to add something else. We want to draw something. So I'm going to draw like a grid. So to draw a grid, we're going to add, we're going to draw some lines. So here is our line drawing tools, and they're kind of cool. So we're going to take all of this, and we're going to draw a line in 3D. Take this and put this, say, here. Let's actually do it after this, like so. And we're going to have a line object, so we're going to do that, like so, and that is a pointer, like so. And I'm going to do this. Okay, so now I'm going to, and then I need to free the object when I'm done with it. I'm going to do that last, obviously. And then we're not going to do any of this for now. I can set colors. Let's not do that. Let's just draw. So we're going to do this, and we're going to draw our object like so, and line object, and then we're just going to draw it as is. So we're going to multiply with white like so, and then we're going to have to add a line that we want to draw. And by the way, we should only do this in draw mode. So we're going to do draw like so, and we're going to do a color for this line, and it needs to start as a white line, and it's going to end as a white line. And then our object is the line object, like so. And then let's start at -1, and then go 0 and 0 and something like that. And then we're going to go all the way to plus. Okay, let's see if we can get anything on screen. So now we have a line, and that looks real nice. You can actually see that it is a line that has a depth to it. So you see kind of fades out as it goes out of focus. So it looks kind of cool. So, now everything is rotating. It should be, yeah. Okay, so let's do something with this. We have one line that's boring. So let's do I, and then do, actually, let's not do that. Let's do float f, and then say, hey, for f is equal to 0. No, wait, it's minus 10. And as long as f is less than 10.5, and then f plus equal 1, right? So now we have a loop here, and then we can set f here, like so. So now we should get lots of lines. Yes, and we did, but they're in the wrong axis. That's not what I wanted. I wanted this f, 0, and 0, like so. Right, and now you can see I have lines that keep going. And let's actually make these lines longer, like so. Right? And you can see they're fading out way too much right now, so I can't actually see them. And that is because I haven't set my focal depth of my camera. So I have very little focal depth. So I want to change that. So I'm going to set the focal depth, and then I'm going to use my camera control. And in my camera thing, I can get the distance to the camera. Where's that? Distance camera get, like this. So I'm going to put that here, like so. And this, we're using the default, which is null. And let's see what it looks like now. So now we have lines, and when we zoom out, we see them better, right? So it looks cool, right? You can see the, right? So we have some nifty little lines. And actually, let's add just 1, 0, like this. Now we get more lines, like so, right? Now we get lots of lines. Okay, and of course, we want this to be a grid, because it wouldn't be a 3D program unless there's a grid. And then we're just swapping these out. So we're saying F here, and minus 10 and 10, and then go. And now we have a grid that we can play with, right? So we almost have a 3D program now, which of course is cool. However, it would be really nice if we could actually move stuff. So let's actually make it so that we can move this particular object. So we have this string here, and we're going to do another push here and a pop right after, like so. And then we're going to add a matrix here. So we're going to do a matrix, and this is a 4x4 matrix. So we're going to initialize that one to 0. We're going to use an identity matrix for this, like so, and boom, boom, boom. That's the identity matrix. And then we're going to go, and there's another function next to this, which is, whoops, that's not what I want. I want the declaration, which is this function, which is matrix multiply. So we're going to do that, and we're going to say, here's our matrix, and we want to multiply with our text matrix. So now when we run this, absolutely nothing should change. But it did. Did I do something wrong? I must have done something very wrong. Hold on, that's there. Oh, that's too many numbers somewhere. No, it's not. Oh, I didn't set it to float. And that makes it an integer and things go horribly wrong. And this takes a float. There we go. There we go. Okay, so now nothing has changed, which is what we wanted. And obviously I can go in here and tweak it by hand, but we don't want to do that. We want something cooler than that. So we're going to go in and we're going to add some manipulators to this thing. So hold on. We have, where's our manipulators? Widgets. I think I scrolled past it. There's a lot of stuff. Widgets, backgrounds, blah, blah, blah. Primitive lines, cameras. Here we go. Manipulators. Okay, so we want to move this object. So I'm going to take an XYZ position and move it with. So we're going to copy that and put that somewhere around here. And we're going to need the input. We're going to need the matrix that we're operating in, which is this. And we're going to need a position. And we're actually going to read out from this matrix the position. We happen to know that our position is at 12 because the 12th, 13th, and 14th of the numbers are what gives us the position. And I'm going to use the same pointer as ID. We're not going to use any snapping, so we're going to set that to null. And the snapping is not going to be active. So active. And we want to be able to move it in X, so true. We want to be able to move it in Y, so let's make that true. And we want to be able to move it in Z, so let's make that true. And scale, let's make that 1. And time, let's make that 1 as well. Okay, so now let's see what we get. So now we have a little manipulator here. See that? And I can move that. So now I can move my text wherever I want it. Cool. So I've almost built the 3D program here. Well, I kind of have. Not a very exciting one, but still. But it's boring that the text is not rotating. So let's add another manipulator. So we have a rotate, which is this thing. Can put that in, and again, we use the input. We have our matrix, our position, which happens to be this thing, and then our rotation matrix. I think we can use this straight off. And then we use the same as ID. Don't use any snapping again, so we don't have to do that. And scale and time, we're going to make those 1 as well. Okay, let's see if this works. Right, so now we have a scalar thing, and we can now rotate this text any way we want. We can move it. We can, yeah, play around. Oh, what? Oh, yeah, because I should really not do this. I should have a separate matrix for the rotation. But yeah. So now you can do like fancy text. It's all in 3D. The sliding is because I turned on slide, which I can't stop myself from doing because it's cool. Yeah, we're starting to get somewhere. So let's do a few more things that you might want to be able to do. So I'm going to go back to our panel. And I'm going to add one more thing in our panel. So I'm going to do copy this. And after our thing, we're going to add I'm going to put 3 there. We're going to put a button here. So And I'm going to see what kind of button we want. I should really use a text button, but text buttons are boring because we've already used the text button. So let's see what kind of button we want to use. I think I have a tooltip. Text button list is kind of cool. So let's use that. And a text button list allows you to have lots of text in a row. So I'm going to do ID, and then I'm going to do as ID, I'm going to set just we're going to get to that later on, but we're going to use this as our position. Our length is going to be what? It's going to be this this thing, right? Yes. This is our length, and then we can pick our text style, and I want to use center because I think that's prettiest for this thing. And then we're going to do our text size. I don't know what we're using. I think we're using this. Let's use the same as we're using here in this body of text. Okay, and then we need some spacing. So we're going to use the default space and text line. What is that? Oh yeah, that's how long the line is. Didn't I already? Hold on, spacing size. Huh. I don't actually remember what that parameter does. Oh, it might be, I think it might be the vertical lines. Let's just do that. It's going to be too big. And then we have an array of text. So we're going to create that, and we're going to say we have a number of texts, and we're going to do, say, 3 different ones. And we're going to say this is going to be load disco. Okay. So now we have 3 values. It's const right now. Doesn't have to be, but actually, let's not make it const. Actually, it kind of is const no matter what, because it's a text string. And then we're going to put this as our thing. So we're going to say, here's our texts. And there's 3 of those. Oh, hold on. Selected. And then this might not be what I was planning on. 1, 1, 1. Actually, we did have another color for our texts, which was something. Oh yeah, let's copy these numbers so we get the same text color. Like so. I'm not actually sure what's going to happen now. There we go. So now we have text here, and there's only 3 values, and they're way too close to each other, so it looks kind of terrible. So this should be not this. This should be a -9. Let's see. Okay, so now it's further back, which is good. And then, oh, is it this thing? No, I think that's the height of the lines, isn't it? Yeah, so you see these lines, they're way too high. So we're going to set that to 0.3, 0.3, and then we're going to do Not quite sure. Oh, it's center. That's so this should be, hold on. Should not be this. This should be halfway between. So it should be the center of this thing is this plus hold on. -1 and times 0.5. So right in between those two. And then the length should be that. Okay, I'm not sure if this is correct, but we'll see. Right, okay, so now it's centered at least. And you can see when I pull it out, and it gets smaller when, yeah, the text, it needs a little bit more space to fit. But okay, so now we have 3 buttons here, and one of them is actually active. So if I want to have like 3 different options, I can do that, but I don't want that. So let's actually make the active ones, it's 0 right now. Let's make that -1, just so none of them are highlighted. Right, so now they're only highlighting when I grab them, right? So this, I really like this style, just, have a little vertical bar between them. But actually we have we added another color wheel. We don't need that one. Okay, and now we want to use this for something. So we're going to get an integer, say an output. I'm going to get that output here. I'm going to read it out. And then we're going to say switch. And then we're going to say 0. Sorry, output case 0 break. Something like that. And right now we can set a bunch of cases for things we want to have happen when these 3 buttons are pressed. So I said load and save there. So I'm going to show you how to do a load and save requester. So Relinquish has that. Betray has that. Betray is the platform layer, and it allows you to do load and save requesters. So we're going to use those. So what we do here is we say, hey, I want to save, and I can give my types. So I'm going to do, let's see what types we want. And the types I want, I'm only going to do one type because I'm lazy. And that type is, sorry, we need these around this thing. There we go. So this would be star dot star, right? Because we just want, oh, this should be 1, of course. Types. So we're going to give this as types. And then we're going to say only one of these. And then we need an ID. So I'm going to use, let's see, text as our ID for this. We just need something that is, comes back. And then we're going to do the same thing for load. So we're going to have the same thing. And then here we're going to say if we need a string thing. Okay, so we're going to do, we're going to put a s char an output string, right? And then we're going to say, hey, we're going to say output string, and we're going to wait for any time there is a save call for this particular ID. So we're going to do text, like so. And then we're going to say if this thing is not null, then we're going to have to do something. So I suggest we use this text thing we have here and simply do a for loop. For I is equal to 0, I is less than 256 minus 1, I plus plus, right? And like so. And then we're saying we want to take this text and override it with our output string, like so. Oops. And then we want to terminate this just to make sure when we're done, like so. Okay, so now we have this, and apparently I don't have I defined. So we're just going to add it here because I is always useful. Okay, so now we have a thing where it says if this requester with this thing returns, then do something. Copy over this information. So we have a load and a save, and then we're going to copy this over, and we're going to do exactly the same thing if we get load. Load. Right? Okay, so let's try this now. So now when we click here, we get this, and we press, let's make this, click load, and what happens, we get a file requester, we can pick a file, press OK, and all of a sudden now we copy the text string of that location to this text thing, right? So that's how you can really easily do a requester, and there's two different requesters, obviously, for loading and saving, because on operating systems, those are a bit different. Cool. What should we do now? We're starting to get a full application, but there's one more thing I want to show. We would like to do a pop-up menu. So in order to do that, we're going to use a pop-up detector. And there's a whole bunch of them that you can use for detection. And I'm going to use this one. Actually, let's not do that. Let's talk about time. Time is a funny thing. So I'm going to show you how to do time. So let's say I want to animate this panel. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, we're going to do a Boolean here and say active, right? And then we're going to say, hey, if this thing is not active, then we don't draw the panel. Return, right? And then obviously we need to add a parameter here to our panel that says if this is active, and we're going to call that panel active. And we're going to go here, we're going to say a static Boolean panel active, and it's going to be true, right? And then we're going to say, well, that's nice, but now we need to activate it. So I'm just going to copy this code and just say like, okay, so if we press, which button do we want? F1. We make the panel is now equal to not whatever the panel is. So that means that with F1, we should be able to toggle this panel on and off. Let's see if that works. I'm pressing F1, and you can see now the panel goes away, right? That's pretty cool. But what if we want that to be a little nicer? So now we're going to go into panel, and we're going to say, okay, let's create a floating point value here. Float, and call it time. And we're going to set time to 0 in the beginning. And then we're going to use an animation function. Oh, static float, not float. We're going to go here, and one of the first functions here is animate. And this is sort of the simplest function ever. But what it does is that you give it the input, which has a timer, and then you have a timer. So this is our time. So we're going to modify this, and it's going to go between 0 and 1 if the value is active. So we're going to say active, and then we can say how fast we want it to move. So we're going to say 0.1, like so. Okay, so now we have a thing here. So now, for instance, we might say that we want to animate something here. So a lot of things do have animation. So for instance, the surface draw has a 1 here. We can actually change that to time. So now you can see that when we start, the time goes on, and when we press F1, it goes away. So we can actually, it has built-in animation, right? That's cool. And lots of things have animation. So now we can say if time is less than 0.001, then return, because then we're at 0. And now, instead of having that, you know, when we press F1, it goes away, and press F1, it comes back. And now, obviously, I haven't animated the text or anything like that, but I could really easily say, let's add an X value here, set that to 0. Oh, it needs to be static as well. No, actually, it doesn't. Let's say X, and then we're going to add X to, say, where we are. So we're going to say X minus for our edit line, where that is. This one is X here, and then where's the positions here? X for this thing, and I think there was, yeah, here. X plus this thing. So we're just going to add this everywhere. This position X plus, and where are we doing this? X plus. Okay, so X is 0, so it doesn't make a difference right now. X is 0, right? Like so. But if we now change that to say that X is 1, sorry, time minus 1, like so. So now all of a sudden we have this fancy animation where it goes in and comes out. You can do this. I think there's even a, yeah, there's a bunch of things you can do now. So for instance, lots of these things like this has a time. So I can change that to time. I can, let's see, does this one, I think this one has a time as well. Trying to remember. Almost all of them do. Apparently not this one. Slider does have time right before color. Oh, right, so this one. Okay, so now if we go back and we do this, you can see that these little icons will animate as well. You can't see it too well, but they do. So yeah, and that's a sort of easy way to make things animated, and it's sort of a convention that is used all over the place for animation. Cool. So let's do 2 more things before we wrap up. We want to do a pop-up menu because pop-up menus are fun. So we're going to go down to our pop-ups, and we have a pop-up detection. So we're going to use this thing. I'm going to put that into our main loop. So we're going to put it kind of at the close to the end. And again, we need an ID. We need to pick a button. So I'm going to choose button 2, which is the middle mouse button, because that's where I like it. And then we need a function. So we're going to take this and we're going to put it up here. And we're going to say, call it something like tutorial pop-up function, like so. And now you're going to understand why I did the time demo, because this thing has time. So we're going to take this, and we're going to go back here. We're going to say, hey, we need this thing, and we're going to use the same pointer as our ID, because we need an ID, and then user null. Okay, great. Then we need to draw a pop-up menu, and actually we can draw a pop-up menu in any way we want, but I'm going to use this built-in pop-up menu thing. So we're going to grab this and we're going to copy it over here. So we're going to do this, and now we have this element and we can really easily create some stuff. So we're going to do elements, and I don't know how many, but we're going to do, say, 4 of these. And then you just fill out this form and say, hey, I want a top called, let's call it top. And that doesn't have any parameters, so we don't care. And then we're going to do element. Hold on. We're going to copy this here. Boom. Like so, like so. And then we're going to do another one, which is going to be a bottom one. Like so. And then we're going to call this going to be 0, 0, 1, 1. And then we're going to have one on each side. And those are going to be angular ones. So we're going to do an angle. So we're going to call this one side. And then we actually need some angles here. So we're going to set this, and then data and angle. And now I'm going to have to do math, which is hard. So I think we're going to do 45 degrees. And then it's going to end at 45 degrees plus 90 degrees. And then we're going to have to make this number 2. And then we're going to do one more. And then we're going to do just plus 180 degree. Right? Okay. And then we turn to 3. So now we're filling out sort of this form, if you will, filling out the structure. And great. So now we're going to do our pop-up, and we're going to use not the simple one. This is actually the complex one. So we just give it the elements. We're giving the number of elements, which is 4, and the time, which is time, and then input. Turns out it wasn't that hard. Okay, so now let's see what happens when we run this. Oops, that was null. So oh yeah, it should be static, and the elements, we use those as a ID because it's convenient. So now we have our application, and I'm pressing the middle mouse button and nothing happens, of course. What am I missing? Let's see, I'm just going to put a breakpoint here and see. Oh, I'm not even trigger it. Okay, interesting. Let's see what we're using. Have mouse attack function. Let's try 0. Okay. Let's try another one. Hold on. That should, oh, it's ID. Sorry, that doesn't work because the ID here needs to be null because I want the pop-up to happen all the time, even when you're not clicking on something specific. So now, there we go. Now we're clicking on this thing. So now we get a pop-up menu here with left, right, and yeah. And why? Oh, sorry, I locked it. Let's try one more time. See if, there we go. And then middle mouse button, I get pop-up. I can select something and it goes away. Cool. And then obviously this thing outputs something. So we can do uint out, and then out, and then a switch. And I'm not going to type this out. And then just, and you can really easily, I'm just going to do that. You can really easily stack these. So let's say I want to do like 8 of these, and then I just want to have a bunch at the bottom. So I'm just going to do this. There we go. And then 4, 5, 6, 7, not 77. And then change this to 8. And now when I press the middle mouse button, I get a whole bunch of options down here. So it's super easy to just add more functionality to your application. And pop-up menus can also be specific to certain things. So for instance, I can create, let's take our tutorial, not the space, let's take the panel, just use that as a pointer and use that as an ID for our background to our square, right? And then down here, I'm going to use this ID for the mouse detection. So now when I click here with my middle mouse button, nothing happens. But if I click in this window, I get the pop-up. So it's really easy to make pop-up menus that are context sensitive. And there's actually a couple of other kinds of pop-ups you can do. So let's create another one just for funsies. You can do multi-touch, and that basically says, if 5 fingers or 4 fingers, then you pop up one of these. You can do a icon or text, so you can do various different, and axes, that's actually because the whole UI supports a controller. So if you don't have a mouse pointer, you can still get pop-up menus. So that's kind of cool too. Finally, let's say you want to make a panel, a really, really, really simple panel, right? Not the fancy one we made, just something super simple. So then you can use this thing. So I'm gonna copy all of this. Actually, I'm gonna copy a lot, like so. And then we're gonna go back to our tutorial, and we're gonna copy this here. We're gonna create a new function, and we're gonna call it, what are we going to call it? We want to again have something like an active. So we're going to copy a little bit of code from this one. So we're going to say, is this active? If it is active, and then we're going to do a static float time is equal to 0, and if time is less than 0.001, return. Okay, so now we have a thing here. And then we're going to use the same animate thing as we did before. I'm just copy and pasting some stuff here just to get it right. Okay, so now we're have this, and we should call this tutorial pop-up panel. Not the greatest name, but what do you know? And in this, I'm going to have a widget list. So I'm going to do this, and this one's kind of similar to the pop-up menu. So again, you have an ID, and the ID, let's just use this name just to have something. And then the elements, we're going to use, put elements here. I'm going to make those static just for convenience. And then we're going to say for just to get something. And this, and let's only use one. Let's use time, which is time. And then title, which is going to be my panel. Obviously, I should use something else. I should use the system that I showed earlier that lets you translate things, but let's move forward. And then we're going to have a color. So let's do our favorite blue, which is this. Oops, that was wrong, like so. So this, oh, sorry, that was the wrong. We need two colors. So I'm gonna use white for main color, like so, and we're gonna have a background color, and that's where I want my blue. And then I get to choose the style, and I want the full panel, like so. There we go. Okay, so now I need to describe this panel, and I do that by filling out these elements. So I'm going to do, I'm actually only going to do one for now. So elements and type. And there's a long enum of different kind of things you might want to have. So let's do a Boolean just because it's the simplest thing, like so. And whoops, my keyboard just changed language for some reason, which is not a good thing. And then element, what do we want here? We want a description. Yeah, there's a description. So this is my nice button, or I think it's okay. And then we have another one, which is the text one. So we're just going to call it toggle, right? And then we're going to have to set the actual value, which is this thing, parameter active true, like so. Okay, so now we have this, and we're going to go down to the bottom here, and just like we have our detect mouse pop up, before that one, we're going to do this one. And we're going to copy this just because we need to be able to turn on and off this thing. So we're going to call that pop-up panel active. I don't know, kind of confusing naming, but you know, like so. And then we need a key, so we're going to do F2. And then we need to set this. And this should be false by default. And there we go. Oops. Oh, I should totally remove all the stuff I had here. Like all of this. I copied and pasted it. Like so. Let's see what we get. Okay, so now we have this, and I can press F2, and I get this little panel. And this little panel now has a toggle on it, and I'm not actually changing that toggle, but you do have a toggle. So great, let's make something more here. So one of the things I might want to do is I might want to have let's create a static a toggle value of true, and we'll copy that over here. And then here on the other side, I can actually read this out. So I say if I'm in input mode BAM event, I can listen to this all the time because it's not going to change if it's not an event, but let's save some cycles and say, if this is, I'm probably not going to save any cycles, but so now this value may have changed. So I'm going to read it back to our toggle. There we go. And actually, I'm going to change another thing here. This active, let's make that a pointer instead. So we can actually change it from within this thing. Okay. And then we're going to have to go down here and change the panel to a pointer. There we go. Okay, so let's see what we get now. Right, and I can press F2 and I get this thing. And now I can actually toggle it. And I like this window, but it's kind of boring that it's just there. I can't move it. So there's actually a way to do that. So let's see. There is a bunch of stuff here, but there is a specific function for that. Here we go. No. There's a function called something. Let me figure this out. Oh, I think it's somewhere around these. Draw shape. Here we go. Background shape matrix interact. We can do this thing. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna go back into our tutorial, and inside of this, we're gonna add oh wait, this should be a boolean. We're gonna add this function here, and we're gonna say we need the input, and then we're gonna give the ID of this thing. So this is the same ID, and then we're gonna have a matrix here. So we do this and matrix, and this is gonna be a 4x4 matrix. And guess what? We've done that before. Can we find all? There it is. I'm just going to copy the initialization. So we get a 4x4 matrix. We have a matrix here, and we can do, maybe we want this true, and we want this true. So now we have a little bit of interaction here. And then we actually need to rotate this. So we'll say if input, whoops, wow, okay, it keeps changing my keyboard. I don't know why. Mode, nope, no, is equal to BAM draw. And then we're going to do the same thing as we've done before, but here, let's see. We have the text. Yeah, so we're multiplying. We do a push and a pop before we draw this thing. So we do this. And we can actually use null for this. Let's not actually. Let's pass the matrix into this because it's more pretty. So we're going to add the matrix. here. And then we're going to change this to M. So we're going to use M here. Use M here. This text goes away. And then we're going to copy this part and put it at the end of this function. So we're transforming the whole thing, but leaving it as is. Okay, so now we need to go down here and actually add this parameter to matrix. There we go. So we press F. Whoa, okay. Did something go wrong? Oh, wait, I know what I did wrong, I think. I have pop there. Yeah, there's a pop there that goes away. If you do one too many pops, it will quit, that's why. So there we go. And now I can actually move this window and I can use scaling and things like that. And I think actually, yeah, I can rotate it too. It's completely worthless, but hey. And you can turn off the interactions. So now I turn true and true for all the interactions, which is kind of stupid, but still. So the thing about this is that you can really quickly make a UI for something. Like if you need a panel, so I can do Boolean, I can go to, instead of a Boolean, I can have a text. So let's say we want to make a login panel, right? That's kind of a reasonable thing to do. So let's do this text, name, username, and then parameter. Let's see what we have here. Text, and I'm going to make that 0 like so. And actually, that's not good enough. We need to store this. So we need to have a static. Actually, the whole thing is static. So why are we writing this? We could do something smarter. We could do let's say if this is true, then we need to initialize this. So let's say this text is 0, so we terminate that. And we'll make this text, and then this one we'll make into a password, and the text for that should also be 0. Password don't. There we go. So now you have a password thing. And then we're going to take this whole thing and we're going to put it here. And we're going to say, hey, if init is true, run this thing. So we initialize it only once. Like so. And then init from there on is false. Right? So now we're only running it once. Cool. And on top of that, we kind of want to have another little thing. We want a true, an OK cancel button, right? So let's put that in. So I'm going to do this and this, and I think we have all the elements we need. I don't know if is this text used. I'm not sure. And then OK cancel. So we're going to set param OK cancel, and OK cancel has a, we go to definition of that, has this OK cancel state, which is undecided, of course. Okay, so this is our setup. And actually, we always want to set this just to be sure. And oh, we did remove that. Okay, something like this. So now we have that, and then we can remove this thing because we're not reading everything out again. And then we're not having one element, we have three, and we can run. So let's see what happens. Okay, so I'm going to press F2, and now I get name, password, and oh, hello. That was wrong. Let's see. Yeah, I set that to password. Of course, I should not have done that. Go to OK, cancel is what we want. There we go. So F2, and now we have a panel where you can log in with your name. Oh, it says toggle. Of course, it shouldn't say toggle. It should say password. Damn it. There we go. Boom. Okay. So now we have a panel. So this is pretty damn easy to do. One thing, I think you can make this transparent. Can you do that? Background color 0.5. I'm not actually sure. And yeah, look at that. So now you have a transparent window. Pretty nifty. So yeah, you can also see there's a little bit of drop shadow there. So it's quite nice. Yeah, and you can also change a little bit of the styling of that. So as I said, there is a compact version of this. So if you have less space, you can do this compact, and then you start again, and now the window is super cramped. Actually, that looks kind of broken. So let's not do that panel. Okay. I think that's it for my tutorial. So I'm going to stop right now. Thank you all for watching. And as I said before, all this code is open source, and you can find it at gamepipeline.org. You can also follow me on Twitter at kelsolar.com, and sorry, at kelsolar or at Eskil Steenberg, and my website is kelsolar.com. So thank you everybody for watching, and have a good evening.